In a world drowning in noise, where truth is often buried beneath layers of propaganda and misinformation, there's a need for a different kind of a network of creators that cuts through the clutter, that doesn't shy away from tough topics, and that delivers the unfiltered truth. We are Trim Radio Network. We are creators, we are innovators, we are investigators. We're the ones who aren't afraid to call a spade a spade. If you're ready to participate in thought-provoking discussions, informational topics, and of course today's biggest headlines, subscribe to our YouTube channel today. We're Trim Radio Network. We're cutting the bull and serving the truth.
Welcome to Revelation, where prophecy meets science. Join host Peter Kling, the Einstein of Biblical Prophecy, as he uncovers ancient truths with modern insight. Prepare to see the world in a whole new light. And now your host, Peter Kling.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Where prophecy turns into reality. Maybe that would be a better title of the show, because that's about what we're getting ready to see. And unless you're a good biblical scholar, it's really difficult to put all this together. And then you got to know what's within the scriptures and then kind of know how to focus and let this play out. But you also have to pay attention to the world events. What are we seeing? How does it fit the prophecy? And what can we expect? We've got a very interesting situation, politically speaking, and of course, hello, Epstein files. It's got to be like the number one thing on the hit parade. Riscal, you and I were talking about this earlier, and you expressed some frustration. Why don't you share that with the audience? Because I'd like to start off with the frustration that people are feeling.
I did not vote for this. You know, Trump said he was going to drain the swamp. That's what I believe a lot of us that voted for him was one of the selling points, if you will, that he was going to drain the swamp. We were going to get rid of the criminals. We were going to have a transparent administration. And now he has the ammunition that he needs to do that, and it's not happening. Next to nothing is happening. And what's one of the most disturbing things I've seen is that there is that lady from CNN, Kristen or something, I can't remember her name, but she asks him about the Epstein files, and he says the country should go on to something else or something to that effect. In other words, we need to move on. Hell no, I'm not moving on. We're talking about the torture of children. We're talking about the trafficking of women. We're talking about the abuse of human beings. I'm not going to move on. I want to see the names. I want to see those people who are responsible for doing these horrific things brought to justice. And the thing that really I'm still boiling over is that I watched a short video by Marjorie Taylor Greene. And towards the end of the video, she says, he was mad at me, he was yelling at me, he was screaming at me because I was one who wanted to release the files. And he told me, now I'm paraphrasing, he told me, she said, why didn't you want to release them? And he told me it would hurt my friends.
Okay. And that's an interesting...
There's a saying that says birds of a feather.
Yep, and you have to look at, let's take a look at facts here. Well, hold on. Let's take a look at some facts here. Trump just didn't come to me in the last 10 years. I lived in the New York metropolitan area for a good portion of my life. And I was always reading about Trump, back in talking about late 70s. And Trump was, playboy, and then he was married, and then he wasn't married, and, Trump was looking for that long-term relationship, I think, but he was also a Democrat. And so who's he going to be rubbing elbows with? He's I don't think he was quite a billionaire yet, or maybe he just achieved it, like the $1 billion mark. And we're going back late 70s, right? Early 80s. And it was it was a lot of political haranguing that was going on. And I was working, I left research and development and got into communications, interestingly enough, and which I absolutely loved because I could communicate. You can't talk to, a test tube. Well, you can talk to one. Hopefully, it won't answer you back. But it was starting to communicate, and who are we dealing with? And the owner of the company was a very wealthy Republican, and he was very involved. Now, I can't say whether he was involved with the Epstein files or not, but we got a call from him one day. I was with the manager. The manager got a call from him. He was on the floor of the Republican Party when it was the convention. They held it out in California. She's around 1980. No, I'm sorry. It's getting into the 90s now. You got to speed things up. But anyway, we got a call, and he was questioning, he wanted us to find where the Woodstock reunion was going to be, and it was hidden. And somehow, out on the Republican floor, he got news of this event, which was up at the original Yasgur's farm. And what was he involved in? I don't know. But you look at this group of people, and they're all traveling together. They're all going to the same parties. They're all involved in different segments, especially in New York City. New York City was being transformed at the time into basically a pit. I mean, I remember as a kid going down 42nd Street. It was nothing but sex shops. And I was, yeah, seriously, because my dad, we used to go fishing out on Long Island, and we'd go right through the Lincoln Tunnel and then through the Mid Hudson, the East Rivers Tunnel. I forgot the name of it, but anyway, but he'd go right down 42nd Street. Come on, Dad, go a block over. Well, you go down 42nd Street. Last time I was there, it's the theater district now. It's one of the most spectacular places in New York City. And you can go there any time of the day and night. That's where they generally have the New Year's celebration. I was there twice for that. They hit 2000 and 2001. Even got to see the T-shirt. That's when we were supposed to have Y2K. And so, yeah, I was right in the heart of that mess. But was I, hey, you're in New York City and it's nighttime. It's after midnight. Yeah, so once upon a time, you couldn't do that. And I don't know how it's going to be now. From what I understand, good morning. It's 5 a.m. Here's your prayer service, and they're playing on loudspeakers. There's so much going on there.
They're doing that over the loudspeakers in New York. I know that's happening in Michigan. Is that happening in New York too?
That's what I understand. Yeah. And now here's a situation where, I don't know for a fact, but allegedly he got over 1 million illegal votes.
Huh.
Well, wait a minute. Where'd they come from? Okay, do you think that's going to go unrecognized? No. But we're in a situation, that's been repeated across the country. It's insurrection, but let's stay with the Epstein files here, okay? Because people want to know. Honestly, I really don't care who's in there sooner or later, because it's like if I sent to Jeffrey Epstein an email regarding his telecommunication services or something like that, I'd be in the Epstein files. Of course, I'd be playing at a whole different level. That you know, who would I be dealing with? The movers and the shakers of the planet, right?
Yeah.
So if you were a mover and a shaker, guess what? You're probably in the Epstein files. But who did illegal things? And we know that it's absolutely terrible. It's absolutely terrible. What we see here is a window into the heart of the synagogue of Satan, and that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing. But now, what does Revelation 3:9 say about the synagogue of Satan? And I've read this many times, but hey, for new listeners, here it is. Look, I will give those from the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews, and yet they are not, but are lying. Look, I will make them come and do obeisance before your feet and make them know that I have loved you. Yeah, for what they did to our children. So Epstein, Jewish name. So we're told to believe that. Part of the Khazarian mafia, part of the people that are running this planet. And you've got three major factions. Hillary Clinton is maybe was a Baal worshiper. She wanted to do a lot in code. She made a comment. Maybe I need to sacrifice a chicken to Baal. She wanted to. If you remember, it's 2016 when the election was going on between her and Trump. They had, interestingly enough, ISIS had blown up the gateway of the city of Baal. They destroyed it. And so an artist, I believe he's a French artist, but some artist reconstructed the gate to the Pillar of Baal, the arch of the Pillar of Baal, and or the arch to God Baal. It's kind of like a portal, the arch to triumph, but it was to the god Baal, who was also Molech, who required live child sacrifice. And it actually brings in the triune god of Baal, Ashtoreth, and Molech, each in different capacities. But yeah, it's kind of strange. And oddly enough, I saw a clip, and I was watching Benjamin Fulford, and he showed this clip from Iran where they were actually burning, and as Iran, keep in mind, they were burning an effigy to Molech. They made a bull and with outstretched hands as to receive a child, an infant for live child sacrifice, and they threw the torch into Molech's lap to start the fire, and the whole thing burns up.
So,
Yeah.
Peter, I'm not clear. Was that in praising him, or clarify that?
That was they were destroying the god Molech.
Okay.
That's how it was being played across. They weren't that they had this effigy and they just threw a flaming torch into the lap, and the whole thing burned up. So
Okay.
it wasn't just to light a fire in the lap. It was like Burning Man, burning Molech, burning the god Molech, and that's exactly what should be done to that beast. In the Valley of Hinnom in Israel, that it was where they used to have sacrifices to Molech. They found over 20,000 infant, the remains of infants from newborn to 2 years old. Over 20,000, all charred. Disgusting. Disgusting. And
And the same thing's going on today, Peter. According to some of these things that I've heard that are in the files that are being released, they're cooking children and eating children. It's the most, oh my God, I'm going to throw up.
well, don't throw up, because what's going to happen to the synagogue of Satan is going to be brought down. They're going to be doing obeisance before our feet.
I'm not clear about the obeisance. What does that mean? What is obeisance?
Bowing in front.
Oh, okay.
If you were going to see a king in of this planet, you would pretty much bow, or at least greet him in an acceptable way. If they're from the Far East, you're going to bow. Back during biblical days, you would probably get down on one knee, especially if the king was sitting on the throne. And so, where does that bring us? You see, because the king, God says this will happen. And so they have to be brought down. Now, what has to be brought down is the system that they built. And they've infiltrated so much that this system is broad and spacious, because we're only seeing one small segment of this synagogue of Satan. We're just talking about Epstein. What about Richard Branson? He's part of the Vril Society, had the black guy installed. What about all the other agents of this cult? Yeah, Pope Francis had the black eye. And how many others? It was the Black Eye Club. Never saw Trump with a black eye. Just saying.
No.
But
I will say this, Peter: if he is guilty of whatever that, I mean, like if he really did rape young women, or like he's been allegedly accused of, and things, then he needs to pay the price too. He's not above it either. I think people think, well, you support Trump no matter what. No, I support the truth. And the whole purpose of voting for Trump was not because, they say, oh, he's a criminal, he's a felon, and blah, blah, blah. It was because he he pissed off all the right people, I think is the easiest way I can put it. He made all the right people mad. And I said, you know what? If that's the case, then he's definitely not on their side. If he's not on their side, then he's more on our side. And that's what I voted for him for. But what's upset me is that how strong he ran on Drain the Swamp. First time, second time, we're going to make America great again, blah, 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 blah. He has the ammunition now to do that with these files being released, and it's not happening. And it just upsets me to no end.
Okay, it's not that it's not happening, but what we're in is a mind control strategic warfare. Okay? And this is all for a mind control situation. Now, I totally sympathize with you, with your Sculla, and there's lots of people that feel that same way. And I'll be honest, I feel a little frustrated. It's like, okay, here I am watching paint dry again. And I thought this was going to be over long before this, but hey, it's not my clock. And where do I get my insight from? I go right back to Father Yahweh, Jehovah. Give me the insight. May your Holy Spirit guide, direct, and protect me. And it's not because I'm so smart that I figured all this out on my own. I was shown a bunch of stuff. And it all fits together. And so now we're seeing these prophecies come together. We also have Revelation 17. I love Revelation QQ, I call it. But this is 17:17 is where God puts it into their hearts, this eighth king, which pours out the bowl of God's anger on the throne of the wild beast. And we talked about that, and we'll have to do a refresher on that, because what's happening at the United Nations, and more people are saying, the United Nations is done. It's over. And Trump's got his board of peace. But he's also setting a lot of other things in motion that happened under the eighth king. Now, what's the eighth king's main direction? To destroy Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great is where Molech, Ashtoreth, and Baal came out of. It's not just those principalities, because remember, religion spread from ancient Babylon, the Tower of Babel, ancient Samaria. It spread from there and went all the way around the world. That's why they found cuneiform writing in South America on a stone, making a reference to Jesus. Wait, what? I was like, was that correct? Let me rewind that. Yeah. The oddities, but that would make sense when you consider the scriptures. So we're talking about worldwide religion, but it's focused mainly on the Vatican, because the Vatican's got its tentacles all over the planet. And, we go down a religious path here. And this is why I say you can't use religion to comprehend the scriptures, not to truly comprehend the scriptures. Religion is something spiritual. Knowledge is knowledge. And comprehend, and you've got to apply the scientific end and to make it all fit. And so here we are at the culmination of the entire written Bible in this time period that we call the last days of the satanic system of evil. But right now we are at a starting point, and where that starting point is pulling the thread on that woven blanket, and you just keep on pulling it, and it keeps on coming undone. And Epstein is just the tip of the iceberg here. And I'm sure I've said this before too, but we want to see, or people want to see, the prosecutions happen. And there's a problem with that because, Riscal, did you see any of Pam Bondi's interviews before Congress?
She seemed like a real smartass to me. I've never really been a fan of hers to begin with. There was an issue with her. She was the Attorney General for Florida, and as most people who know me know, that I lived most of my life in Florida. We had issues with her back then. So when she was appointed by Trump, I said, "Oh gosh," and I didn't really expect a whole lot, but she seemed like a real smartass in her answers. She would deflect, when they asked her about, "Are you planning on investigating anybody?" Blah 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 blah. Well, we shouldn't be talking about this. We should be talking about the whatever it is at the all high. The Dow is at an all-time high, and blah blah blah. Yeah, we should be talking about that. We should be talking about the women that were trafficked. We should be talking about kids that were tortured to the point where they were literally ready to die of fright and then have their blood drained and cooked and eaten. Yeah, we should be talking about that. We should find out who it is that is responsible for that, and they should not feel safe walking the streets. That's my opinion.
And I would agree. And you know what? I would have to believe that, considering what is written within Scripture, that Father Yahweh would certainly approve of. And so that's why it's written, Revelation 17:17, Revelation QQ. They do this because God puts it into their hearts. He puts it into their hearts to carry out his will, to carry out his every thought. And it's not just the eighth king, it's the 10 kings who do not yet have a kingdom. Hello, Bureau of Peace. And so how do you take down, and I said this geez, I've said this over 15 years ago. How do you take down a religious empire? Let the children speak. Either that or tax it to death. Right now, it taxes us. The income tax that the average person who writes a check or has a deduction out of their paycheck, it goes to the IRS, who hands it over to the Federal Reserve, who then sends it to the Crown Corporation, which takes their vig out of that. It sends it to the Vatican so they can then take control of that money, and then they disperse that money into the central banking system and charge us interest on it. Yeah. And it's all fake money to begin with. So guess what? That would make the interest charges fake too, wouldn't it?
Yep. What a scam.
Yeah.
Well,
and somehow we get looped into this because we think it's real. It's our perception. And that's what's happening right now. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a master chess player playing the people of the United States. You say, well, what do you mean we're being played? It's a psyop. It goes back to, and it's a military operation. And have you ever heard of Jan Halper Hayes?
no.
Dr. Jan Halper Hayes, marvelous woman. She's I forget her exact section of education, but she's basically a social psychologist. And she was contracted, she's a private contractor for the Department of Defense. What would the Department of Defense want with the social psychologist? And she is actually, her job was to see what makes the liberals do what they do. And try to get her mind wrapped about, their modus operandi. And she came to the conclusion that the vast majority of them are waking up, but there's going to be 8 to 10% which are gone. That it's a lost part of our society, and those are the people that you find rioting in the streets, being paid for their time, that are being trained to carry out a subversive act against the United States. Technically, they're impeding federal law enforcement. That's a seditious act. Federal. They're impeding the federal government in doing their job. That's sedition. Okay. So you take out ICE, you put the military in the conversation. And you've got these governors all across the country who basically have turned around and put a big middle finger right in Trump's face. Janet Mills did it here in Maine. Tim Walz basically did it in Minnesota. Yep. And I don't know the governor of Colorado, but he gave Trump both middle fingers when it came to Tina Peters. And Trump turned around and pardoned her. And
but she's still in prison.
Yeah, the governor said, "Screw you, Trump. I don't have to listen to you." That's
I don't know why. This is some of the stuff that's going on. This is why I don't understand why he's allowing that. And I read a little bit about her. They put her in solitary confinement. You know what she's guilty of? They found her guilty of basically exposing the corruption, but some other technical thing that she wasn't supposed to do, some crap. It was all garbage to begin with.
She gave her ID to somebody to the guy who or the people that were going to copy the Dominion voting machine data, archival copy it, and she gave him when she had the authority to do this. She gave him her ID. What she should have done is walked him in there. Okay, but
either one,
but regardless, she preserved the original voting data. When they sent the Dominion sheet, they had to update them or something, or give them an
Yeah.
upgrade. When they came back, all the data changed.
Yep.
And data number one, and when she went to report it, that's when her trouble started.
Yep.
So she did the right thing. Now she's responsible for a federal election. She did the right thing, and they stuck her in jail for I don't know how long. Trump
She's in
pardoned her. She's
prison.
still in there. Yeah,
She's
but
not
she's
in
in prison.
jail. She's in prison. That's even worse. And she's in solitary confinement.
She's been in and out of solitary, but it's almost for her own good because people want to bump her off. It would be better if they got her out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another travesty. You had to go back a little further. You had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. There's still nonsense going on about that.
There's still all kinds of garbage coming out about that.
Yeah, and whether they're rumors or not, there's a lot coming out about Erica Kirk.
Yeah.
And here again, people get to a certain point and level. Where's their money coming from? Who's controlling them? At what level do you have that control over that message that's being sent out? And I'll reserve my judgment or my opinion, not my judgment, but my opinion. And I'll tell you, the people that were involved in it were the same people that were involved in starting the evangelical movement in the 19th century, the mid 1800s. That whole evangelical movement was basically taken under control of the Freemasons, being financed by the Rothschilds. So, yep, all them Bible-toting, belt areas and different sections and beliefs and whatever the case might be. Yeah, what's your connection with the Freemasons? Oh, well, about 10% of us are Freemasons. Go down on the down low. Okay, so you're carrying out the Freemason agenda. Yes, okay. Did you know that the Freemasons were the foot soldiers for the Synagogue of Satan? Hello, Albert Pike. Think about that. That's the level of infiltration that we're dealing with. And so when you go to take down the satanic system of evil, it's got to be done in a way where you have the least amount of loss of life and the best result. Now, as far as what's contained in the Epstein files, people have gotten involved in pedophilia or worse, gotten involved in human trafficking of any kind. Trump passed the executive order 2017, December 20th, I think it was. Human rights violations. We'll seize your assets, and if necessary, you'll be executed. He said the same thing in that same bill or executive order. You've also got conspiracy. Oh, that just about hit everybody in Congress. How much part of that bill, and I've read it 3 times, is if you use the government to make yourself rich, that's seditious. That's a big no-no, and you will be held accountable. Your assets will be seized, and you will essentially go to jail. There's a whole section there, human rights violations and conspiracy. It's like, whoa. It's and that has been in effect since that time. Biden didn't seem to care whether it was, he never changed it, and Trump has kept that in that piece of legislature in effect. And so now, as they're finding who's next, think of Doge, but now you got to do Doge at a worldwide level. And that whole section where Elon Musk said, hey, Trump's in the Epstein files. That was bait. That was bait in the water. The Democrats were like, what? Trump's in the Epstein files. We want the Epstein files released. Trump says, nah, nothing worth seeing there. It's all, whatever. He played it down. He didn't want to do it. Jerk that bait in front some more. Come on, speed up. Come on. They're going to chase it. And they chased it. And so then all of a sudden there's this dump of information. And Congress is asking Pam Bondi, who's got a crooked DOJ, most of them compromised. How come she hasn't arrested anybody yet? But yet Pam Bondi doesn't give them any information. She pulls the bait even harder. And so now the whole interest of the United States is focused on this. And I ran into a very interesting situation. Went to the local library here, and the local librarian had mentioned something needs to be done. She says, I hate Trump, but something's got to be done with this, child trafficking. And I was like, what? And that took me totally by surprise that she knew about that. And I've never engaged her in a conversation like that before. It was like, what? I basically go in to do what I've got to do and say goodbye. And that's about it. But it shocked me not that she was awake or that she got that. I can't stand Trump. Something's got to be done about this. And people are waking up. So they're part of that population that didn't like Trump up or whatever his policies were. Can't stand the man, whatever the case might be. But child trafficking, and worse. And worse, and much worse, and sacrificing children, as you said, and then consuming them.
Some of the comments, Peter, that I have listened to, you can't even put it into words. It's just, it's beyond horrifying. It's beyond evil. It's beyond sickness. It's one of those things where I ask myself, why did I want to hear that? It's just so horrific. Why did I want to know that? It's not that I want to know that. It's that it's out there. It's that it's known that it's out there, and somebody needs to pay the price for that. That's the whole purpose behind it. For me, is this cannot go swept under the rug, as many people say. This must be treated immediately. This is not something, I keep hearing, well, the wheels of justice turn slowly. It's been over a year now. Beside the fact that with the release of these files now, we have the evidence. This is no longer theory. Now we have the hard evidence. So there's nothing to stop. This is one of my greatest frustrations right now. There's nothing to stop them from bringing this system down. I think I mentioned to you earlier, Peter, Pam says, well, if we prosecute everybody, we'll bring the whole system down. Well, that's exactly what he ran on. I'm going to drain the swamp. Isn't that what we're talking about? Draining the swamp, bringing the system down. I personally, if I recall correctly, on his first term, he invoked martial law. He didn't publicly announce it, but it is we've been under martial law for some time. I think it's time to publicly announce it and bring in the military, because I don't think that even if the DOJ started arresting people right now, I don't think there's enough time to get to everybody because of all the garbage that's involved in the civil courts. You bring in the military, they're not going to fool around. You're found guilty, see you bye. Next. There's no appeal. There's none of this garbage. You're found guilty, you're done. And we move on to the next person.
And that's what we got to. That's what we're waiting for, basically. Okay, that's the event that we're waiting for, because you can't run these people through the court system. The court system's already clogged up.
You see what happened
And
with Comey? You see what happened with Comey? What a
yeah,
joke.
yeah, and that shows you that you cannot take this to the court system and expect the outcome that you want. And well, might get there eventually, but who's trying? What judge did you draw? What circuit is it in? Whoa, you can't do that, especially. But and when it comes to uh, treason and sedition, you can't try that in a normal judicial court anyway. That's military. That's automatically military, because you committed a crime against the United States of America. You didn't commit a crime against your local township or the state. You committed a crime against the United States of America. And so now keep in mind that the people who control the top ranking ones of the synagogue of Satan are also involved in the banking system. Okay? Ronald Bernard. Ronald Bernard was a world banker, and he did a YouTube video, did an interview, went up on YouTube. It might still be there unless they took it down. But he worked his way up through the banking system, and somebody took a liking to him and put him in some very powerful positions, and he was ruthless at it. Absolutely ruthless in making money, and he had worked himself up to the point of where he was able to control smaller governments' economies, and because of what he did, I forgot what country it was, but the president blew his brains out, killed himself, because he felt that he failed the people. Well, they took him from there to eyes wide shut parties, where basically it was a high elite orgy, and he thought, this is entertaining. It was fun. Now exactly what went on there, he didn't get into detail on, but then they took him to a child sacrifice, and he was done. He was done. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so think about the most powerful people in banking, and this is what they're into. Think about the most powerful people of the earth, and this is what they're into. Think about the most powerful kingdom among the current kings of the planet, and that would be the House of Windsor. What just happened to Prince Andrew? Oh, somebody from the House of Windsor. If you're not familiar, the House of Windsor controls is the monarchy of the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is essentially the largest country on the planet. Think about that. Sun never sets on British soil. And about 24% of the land mass of Earth is controlled by the monarchy. They own it. The Catholic Church has 62%.
How much?
62%.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
make sure that you give your tithes to the Catholic Church.
Yeah, there you go. Think of every Spanish-speaking country.
Wow.
And any of the Catholic explorers, that they usually took a bishop with them or a monk, and the land was claimed in the name of the church.
Wow.
Yeah. Where do you think all that Mayan gold wound up? Spain got their share. The church got theirs. Yeah. And so you have to start looking at this from that different viewpoint in order to get to change the perspective, because we're dealing at we look at it at a local level. It's like looking under a microscope at microbes, and they come and go pretty quick. Single cell animals don't last forever under a microscope. But we don't look at the pond, and you see what we see are what makes the news. What we don't see are the controllers behind the news, and that's what Trump is going after them. Take down the central banking system. Hello, they want to put everything on, make everything on the quantum financial system, where they use blockchain technology, so they can track everything, so you can't commit fraud anymore. So we're going to change it.
They'll figure out a way where they can.
They'll figure it out, But you take out the top level banksters, those who need to be dealt with, who have gotten into the part of these ninth circle cults and these child sacrificing cults, and you can wave goodbye to them and expect a lot of royals to go too. I think the Commonwealth controls like 50 countries. A lot of them are smaller countries in Indonesia, but they got going from east to west, that there's Ireland, there's Scotland, there's Canada. Let's see, then you go down to Indonesia. Once upon a time they had India. That they're still financially, with the Jesuits controlling China. They control, the Crown Corporation controls the central banking system, which is basically run by the big nasty banksters like the Rothschilds. Worst people on the planet, in my personal opinion. You want to talk about the head of the synagogue of Satan? That they don't get any more ruthless than the Rothschilds, who, as Grandma Rothschild said, great-great-grandma Rothschild said, if my sons did not want war would not exist. They make money on war. They made tons of money on the Napoleonic Wars. And they finance both sides, so that it's a win-win situation. Those are the people who will sacrifice the lives of millions, hundreds of millions, for more power. And those deaths are all sacrifices to Satan. Kill them all. And that's what they want. And so now we're seeing the brakes start to come on. And but there's other things that are going on. You also have the stolen 2020 election. And who's involved in that? Venezuela, Cuba, Iran. Iran's involved in a lot of terrorism around the United States, and they've probably have a lot of their trained people right here in the United States. China's also got a lot here. And so if war breaks out in Iran, what do you think happens back home here? Unless they get a call to stand down or get on a jet and fly your butts home, which I don't think is going to happen. So, that little quibble over in Iran may lead to a major insurrection going on here. There's a lot of pieces to this board. And yet Iran is going to have to submit. The United States is legally at war with Iran. They're at war with all these countries that were involved in the 2020 election fraud. Canada, China. You want to talk about dangerous? Yeah. How do we're at war with the country that basically oversaw the coup of America. That's like dropping a nuke. You change the whole course of the country. That's an act of war. And the Crown Corporation in Great Britain is right in with them. And that's why Trump got the royalty treatment. So if Trump rode the royal coach and was treated as a king, that would also make him king over all of Great Britain, those 50 some odd countries. Think about it. So there's a lot that, you're showing something, you're giving a taste of something, and then it's taken away. We forget about it because there's always a new distraction coming on board. And so there's still more parts of this, but it's right now we're being mind controlled. We're being set up for the next step, and it's not just Riscali. You're very awake. I'm very awake that there's millions of people across this country that are like, "Come on, Trump, step up your game," and there's yet millions that are totally oblivious, and they're just now learning about Jeffrey Epstein and child trafficking. A lot of people have known about this for 15, 20 years. What happens to 800,000 children from the United States, not including the 300,000 that Biden lost? Where'd they go? 300,000 kids, boom, gone.
To his credit, reportedly, accordingly, I haven't been able to verify it, but it's supposed to be from a credible source. They found almost half of them this last year.
I had heard the same thing too. Whether they find the other half or not, who knows? The older ones you can put to work. Slave labor. But how far beyond that did it go? We'll never know. I don't think we'll ever know. You can't undo what's been done, but damn, you can stop it. You can stop it.
I agree.
Now, I want to leave this on. I want to look at something that's coming up. We're going to have a blood moon coming up, which is, we usually have them from time to time, but it's coming up in a week, 10 days. Actually, it's March 2nd and 3rd, where we're going to have this full blood moon come about. Trump turned around today and talking about Iran. He says, we'll know in about 10 days or so, maybe 2 weeks, what's going to happen in Iran. It's also the Jewish celebration of Purim. And I had to go refresh myself for this, and it's the celebration of the Jewish people who almost, or who did survive, almost were annihilated under the Persian Empire. Whoa, wait a minute. So the Prince of Persia, the same principality that controls Iran, was almost responsible for the annihilation of all the Jewish people. And it was a plot laid out by Haman, who hated the Jews. And he got the king to sign this declaration, which would have caused all of the Jews at that time to wind up being put to death. Think about that. Only Esther, who was married to the king, she was a queen. She was told about the plot by her uncle Mordecai. And he explained what was going to happen. He said, you got to talk to the king. Now, she was taking her life in her own hands, because if the king didn't call you and you put yourself before the king, that was a death-dealing offense. The king could have you executed for that, because he didn't call you. Why do you bother me? But the king beseeched him and told him the situation. And so while he couldn't retract what he had said, he did change the laws so that the Jews and other people could help the Jews defend themselves. And as it was, Mordecai and all of his followers were thoroughly defeated, and Mordecai and his sons died that day. Huh, interesting. And so you've got here again, interestingly enough, Esther's the 17th book of the Bible, another Q message. And this is at the very last minute, there was a reversal. And the reversal went to God's people. Think about that. And so that's coming up March 2nd and 3rd. That's a whole big celebration in the Jewish faith. Kind of an interesting celebration. It looks like it's gotten out of hand over the years, but it's a celebration nonetheless. It's a great festival. The next thing that we'll be going into after that would be Passover. We'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. But you look at that, you look at what's going on in Iran, you look at the worldwide situation with all these little boiling points, and now Epstein, which has got everybody's attention, and the bait's been put out there. Allegedly, there's supposed to be much more information coming in. I don't know. It's all hearsay until it happens. You know, you can't be sure of anything except looking at the prophecies, looking at the Hebrew holidays, because the clock runs on God's time, not on our time. And speaking of that, we're just about out of time for tonight. Riscola, thank you again for joining me. You know, any questions that you might have, or does that kind of give you something to look forward to? Because we're going to start seeing the other thing. One other thing, Trump is rededicating the United States of America to God on the 17th of May.
Yeah, but so, you know what God? And not to be pessimistic, not to be pessimistic, but what God?
Okay. Here's the God. This is something that was done by the Puritans and the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims were separatist. They wanted to worship the way that they wanted to worship. The Pilgrims were purists. They wanted pure scripture as far removed from Catholicism as possible, but they wanted to influence the whole Anglican Church in England, and that wasn't happening. And Anglican was one step removed from Catholic as far as their traditions. And so they didn't celebrate any of the holidays that are celebrated today by all religions in so-called Christian religions, because they were all pagan holidays and they knew it. And so when they came to this country, they dedicated the country to God. They basically invented, in order to their form of government, of the voting system. All the males in the community voted, and whoever they voted for was their governor. And that's been something that's been handed down. Voting one day, get the ballots in, get them read, and get the results out all in one day. And so they gave us our election system, basically how it's supposed to work. And so we go back, who was their God? Well, they knew the name of God. They knew it was Jehovah, because they went back. They weren't using the King James Bible. They went back to other Bibles that still used God's name. And so that's and takes us right back to Revelation. God puts it into their hearts to carry out his will. So where's the dedication going to be brought back? Right back to Father Yahweh, right back to Jehovah. And so that would be the dedication. Now, just because you dedicate something, are you going to dedicate something that's real shiny and new, or are you going to dedicate something that's moth-eaten and deteriorated? Right now, the United States is pretty well moth-eaten with this from the synagogue of Satan. So hold on, we're going to see change. You know, Ruscullo, we're at this point of it's not going to go on forever. We are going to see this change, and so we have something to look forward to, don't you think? Uh, he's out there somewhere anyway, and
I pray you're right. You know,
and I pray I'm right too. You know, and keep on giving me wisdom and direction. Thank you, Father.
amen.
And so, with that, I'm going to say, hey, support the network, join the network, share the network, give us a thumbs up, let us know that you like the information and you're listening. Don't ask you to make any donations. Yeah, that might come later in the future. Who knows? just so we can grow. But enjoy the information. We have a lot of great other shows and some new ones coming on Trim Radio. Maggie Hart shows tomorrow. You're going to want to listen to that show. That's got some good information health-wise from what I understand. Yeah, it's not just chemtrails anymore either. So listen to her show. Ruscullo, you've got your show on Saturday, and I thank you again for joining us. And I'm going to say love and blessings to everybody. Have a fantastic week. Join us right back here again next week at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Trim Radio Network. Good night, everyone.